The radical, fundamental principles of freedom, rational self-interest, and individual rights. This is the Yaron Brook Show.
All right, everybody, welcome to Yaron Brook Show on this Wednesday, November 19th. It's almost Thanksgiving. Hope everybody's having a fantastic week and looking forward to next week, Thanksgiving and holiday season and all of that. It's going to be a lot of fun. All right, I don't think I think this is the last show of the week. Probably, we'll see if I can do any shows the rest of the week. But probably this is the last show of the week. All right, let's make it a good one, right? Nikos, you know Nikos, whose family name I cannot pronounce, Soti, whatever, impossible to pronounce. You can't do it. Anyway, Nikos has a good video out a few days ago, 4 days ago. It's already got 51,000 views. I mean, Nikos' videos they get amazing on a viewership, which is great. He's got Forget Woke, the left's new formula and how to fight it, which is a good title. And yeah, 51,000 views. That's great. So I want to talk a little bit about something he says then connected to Mamdani and some news from the Mamdani camp from today. Remo wants to pay me to try to pronounce Nikos' family name. I'm sure. For the right amount of money, I'm willing to try to pronounce anything. And this connects to a video that Nick Fuentes just put out. I think it's just put out. Yeah, it came out today. Nick Fuentes put out a video today about how progressive Democrats, i.e. leftists, can work with nationalist Republicans, groypers or whatever, to form a united front, which I've been talking about for decades now. Right? Somehow wrap yourself around a flag and an environmentalism and wrap in some other topics and you get the formula where everybody can be happy, authoritarianism. And the one thing that everybody agrees about is no free market, so that's easy. So let's talk about Mamdani in the context of kind of what is the left trying to do and where's the left going to go? Because I agree with kind of Nikos's analysis. Nikos basically says, look, woke is dead. Woke is divisive. People are not going to vote for woke. They're not interested in woke. The kind of identitarian politics of the left is only going to get so many people involved, and the kind of everything's about the victims. That's not what Mamdani wanted. Mamdani wanted one thing. On a thing that he kept pushing and he kept promoting and he kept saying and he was very dynamic and young but he one thing he pushed on, and that is affordability. That is, we need you guys, the government needs to help you be able to afford stuff, right? And and this is a form of kind of left-wing populism. The masses. Houses are too expensive. We can solve that problem. We'll subsidize your houses. Rent is too high. We'll freeze rents. We, the government, can solve your problem, and it's very similar to kind of populism on the right. There's no principle. It's a question of the government just coming up with something and just doing it and just solving the problem. But the problems identified as those problems that are kind of resonate with the mass of people. And you can see that the Republicans and Trump has pivoted with Mamdani to affordability. Affordability is the catchword, right? We need to make things more affordable. And of course, Trump is quite happy to throw out the free market stuff in order to make things more affordable. Mamdani never believed in the free market stuff, so he's not throwing anything out. But he's going to jump on the affordability stuff. The key word now is how do we give free stuff to people, right? This is kind of the left-wing populism. Democrats have always stood for this to some extent, but now it's kind of more explicit than ever. Free bus rides, free public transportation, and they'll wrap this up with other things from the left that are important to them, like green stuff. They'll talk a lot about green stuff, but Mamdani's not going to. I mean, what can you do if you're mayor of New York in terms of green policy? There's not a lot you can actually do in that regard. So most of what his stuff is going to be redistribution, right? Tax the rich. I mean, Republicans, particularly of the Fuentes, Tucker, J.D. Vance type, are all for increasing taxes on the rich. What's his name? Farley, the senator. They're all for taxing the rich, increasing taxes on the rich and redistributing them in the name of affordability, right? Affordability. So let's just redistribute massive amounts of wealth towards the people who supposedly need it. I mean, there seems to be a consensus now that there's a sense in which the Scandinavian model is the right model. Let's just make people satisfied. We can kill some innovation, we'll kill some productivity, we'll reduce economic growth, but we take away the bottom. So people, at least the bottom is gone, so people are just satisfied. Everybody's just okay. And, what did Mamdani run on? He didn't run on woke. He didn't run on identitarian politics. I mean, a little bit, mainly to appease his left. But what he really ran on were the economic issues, the free buses, the rent control, and a bunch of other things. And at the same time, things that are actually, of Mamdani's that are pretty good, he downplayed because he didn't think his leftist supporters would really go for them that much. Like Mamdani has supported dramatically changing building codes in New York City to allow for more construction of housing, significantly more construction of housing. So he's bought into, somebody's convinced him that affordability, rent control is not enough. You also need to build more. So they're actually going to build more. Also, there was an announcement today coming out of New York City, which I think is interesting, which is that Mamdani has basically, Mamdani and the current New York Police Department commissioner have agreed that she will continue in her role into the Mamdani administration. Now, this woman's name is Jessica Tisch. Jessica Tisch is not a kind of a progressive leftist. She's not woke. She's not defund the police. I mean, she is a huge advocate for police officers, a huge advocate for police presence in neighborhoods. Under her watch, crime in New York City, and I know some of you just don't want to hear this, but crime in New York City has gone down a lot. Violent crime in New York City has gone down a lot. Murder rates in New York City are down to historic lows, particularly this year. And this is not rigging the numbers. This is the reality. It's across the country. In most places, crime is down. Not everywhere, but in most places, crime is down. It's back to the trends we saw in the late 20-teens. And the New York Police Department commissioner has done a pretty good job in New York City. And she hasn't done it by trimming back police, by reducing the police budget and all of that. And the reason she says she agreed to stay on, even though her and Mamdani don't agree on a bunch of stuff, is because she believes she can continue to do her job. She believes she can continue to make New York safe. She believes that Mamdani is going to give her enough to be able to, continue the trend of lower crime in New York. And I think Mamdani's smart, right? He's taken the crime issue out. He's not gonna run, and he's not gonna really advocate for defunding the police. It's a losing strategy for the left. Everywhere they made a big deal out of that, they lost. Mamdani knows that. He didn't run on that really. He ran on you can't afford stuff. We need government. We need government run grocery stores. We need government run grocery stores. We need government-run rental units. We need to increase building. We need to, we need free buses and I don't know, and we need to stick the homeless in the subway system. I'm not sure how that'll go. I think that'll backfire on him. He's not looking for a fight on police. It'll be interesting how he positions himself vis-a-vis Donald Trump in terms of ICE and in terms of immigration, and how big of a fight he gets into. So Nick Fuentes has a video today that basically says, look, progressive Democrats and nationalist Republicans can unify. We can unify around a lot of issues. We can unify around a lot of issues. The left will have to give up on immigration. They'll have to accept the fact that there should be a border and, slow down immigration. And as I've said many, many times, I don't think it's that hard for the left to give up on immigration, because when they go to their union roots, right, not the woke stuff, the woke has opened the borders, anybody can come in, but to their, if you go back to the union roots, they're not pro-immigration, they're anti-immigration. Now, how many, Democrats, how many progressives, leftists are like that, are still union-oriented, more oriented towards Karl Marx than oriented towards post-colonial, postmodern stuff? I don't know. But I think Mamdani is. This guy debated, the socialist had debated in Colorado, Baskow is a Marxist more than he is a woke. So you're gonna get more of these people. Okay, so they'll compromise on immigration. As Nick Fuentes says, the right will compromise on free markets, which they already are. So that's no big compromise. They're already there, right? They're already there. And there's a bunch of stuff that they can agree on to do. Suddenly, I don't think anybody on the right is going to object to rent controls. I don't think anybody on the right is going to object to, different ways in which to deal with so-called affordability. Socialized healthcare. I think the right and the left can probably come together on a plan to socialize healthcare. I mean, maybe not, all the senators we have right now, but we're talking about the new right. We're talking about the Nick Fuentes, Tucker Carlson right. Yeah, they're cool with socializing healthcare. And of course, the one thing that unifies the Mamdanis and Nick Fuenteses of the world, the one thing that they certainly agree on beyond its affordability and we need to destroy the free market in order to gain success. The one thing they can really unify on is hatred for Israel. So as Nick Fuentes says, yeah, I mean, if the left and the right come together to eliminate all foreign aid to Israel, a majority of Americans will support that. And I think that's right. A majority of Americans right now would support that. So, we're going to see how all this evolves. But again, the route to authoritarianism, the path to authoritarianism, is through some kind of unity of left and right. Some kind of coalition that takes the radical left and the radical right. I don't think environmentalism is something they're going to disagree about. At the end of the day, the right is accommodating of certain issues around environmentalism. And if you listen to the integralists, the Patrick Deneen's, the Vermeules, the Deneen's and the Vermeules all actively talk about man's responsibility to nature, and we have to keep our environment, and God left nature for us. We must be good keepers of the garden. We must be good gardeners. We must keep the environment. I mean, they don't sound that different than the left. And we must, they say, balance economic growth with environmentalism. And I think this new type of leftist, populist leftists, who are going to be more concerned about economics, i.e. Marx, than postmodern woke stuff. I mean, they're not really Marxist, and I actually challenge Bhaskar in terms of how Marxist he is. They're not really Marxist, but they accept the idea that the employee-employee relationship is an exploitation arrangement, and they reject that. And they care about economic class, they care about inequality, they care about costs, but they do believe in economic growth. So they think they believe in economic growth. So they can align with some of the YIMBYs and some of the pro-growth Democrats on some issues, like Mamdani supporting more building of housing units in New York. I mean, I think he'd like much of that building to be done by the government with public funds. But he wants to reduce regulations so more building can be built, more housing can be built, more residential properties can be built. And, you know, you're seeing a real blurring. You know, what is the difference? What are the disagreements? If we can take policing off, because that's kind of part of the woke far-right stuff. You know, they kind of agree on identity politics, but neither one is going to win on identity politics. If we take identity politics and we kind of subdue it a little bit, if we say, okay, we're for giving people free stuff, we're for making things more affordable, we're for reducing costs, however that is done. You know, they pretend that they can do that through things like rent control, even though prices will go up, or through socialized medicine. Quality will go down, but and taxes will have to go up. So but they can agree on all this stuff. They can agree on Israel, hate Israel. They can't be anti-Semites explicitly, right? They can't come out again against the Jews, because they'll lose votes that way. But if they come out just against Israel, no, they win on that one. You know, the right and the left could really unite. They hate CEOs. I'm just watching. There's a video that came up here about the murderer of the CEO of United Healthcare. They don't disagree about that. Go after the CEOs, tax the rich, and suddenly you've got a very powerful political entity that is, you know, a kind of a unity of populist right and populist left. Now, whether that could ever happen just in terms of just the alignment is hard to tell. But again, the likely scenario is you get a very charismatic leader who comes about, who advocates for ideas that are attractive both to the populist left and attractive to the populist right, and forms a large coalition that's neither left nor right, just collectivist, but is populist and gains political power that way. You know, it has to be appeasing of religion. It has to be patriotic. It has to be in some way or another America first. It has to be anti-crime. That's the things that the left will have to give in. And in order to get the left, it has to be pro-environment, at least soft pro-environment. It has to be pro-redistribution. It has to be pro-free stuff to people. You know, it has to be anti-free markets. And that combination of, in some ways, the worst of all worlds, is how you get the next authoritarian, the next real populist, big-time leader who is an authoritarian. And, you know, Trump flirts with that, but he's too divisive to unite people around a vision, because he doesn't have a vision, because he doesn't really care. He's all about corruption and narcissism and how he looks and what he can get out of it. But if you had somebody who's really committed and who understood how to exploit all this, I mean, you could build a really big, significant, substantial coalition around it. And this is why it's going to be worth watching Mamdani, seeing what he actually does, seeing how he rallies or doesn't rally support around it, seeing what he gives and what he doubles down on, right? I think he's going to double down on his anti-Israel stuff, at the same time as making clear to the world that he's not anti-Semitic and not being too woke. Certainly not being too woke, because that is super unpopular. So we will see how it evolves. But the good news for those of you living in New York, or wanting to visit New York, or wanting to go to business in New York, is that New York will probably continue to be a safe place, even with Mamdani winning, given that he just announced that Jessica Tisch is going to remain the mayor of, not the mayor, God. Jessica Tisch is going to remain the police department commissioner, and she's done, as I said, a good job with crime so far during her tenure. And she sent out the way this was announced. It wasn't that Mamdani announced it; she announced it first. She sent out an email to all the police officers and to people who work in the police department, basically saying that she is staying and she's committed to the path they put together to reduce crime in the department. And so she announced it to police officers first, and then Mamdani came out and announced it to the press and everybody else. So again, I think a sign that he is not going to go down the path of defunding the police, which is good for all of us who visit New York and don't want to be worried about increasing crime. Yeah, so we're going to wait and see what he actually does with homeless people, whether he can make buses and subways free, how he raises the money to do that. I mean, one of his first challenges is going to be to convince the governor of New York and the New York legislature to raise taxes. He can't, I don't think, unilaterally raise taxes in New York City. He has to get approval of state government. It'll be interesting how he gets that. I wouldn't be shocked if taxes go up, maybe not as much as he would like, but taxes will probably go up in New York. And yeah, free stuff will happen, rent control will happen. We'll see if more housing building will happen. Again, there seems to be a push to deregulate the building of housing and deregulate zoning so more apartments can be built. We'll see if it actually happens or not. All right. So that is Mamdani to be watched, and I think to be followed as kind of the model for a new populist, not anti-woke, but non-woke left that will try to gain steam in the next few years, and particularly it will try to gain steam towards the coming congressional elections. I mean, I doubt that Mamdani, I'm being criticized because Mamdani has a well-fleshed out policy about homelessness. I am very skeptical about that. He's proposing to use spaces to address the issue of the homeless in the underground system in New York City. I think these are superficial ways. He wants to increase mental health and all this stuff that's been tried in San Francisco and tried in Los Angeles and has not worked anywhere. And there's no real reason to think that Mamdani is going to be able to solve the problem of homelessness in New York. So I'm dismissive because I don't think it's I don't think he's serious about it. I don't think anybody's really serious about the homeless. They don't know what they're doing, and there's no easy solution to it. I mean, you have to do a massive combination ultimately in the long run. The combination is dramatically increase housing, the availability of housing, so that prices come down a lot, not come down a little, but come down a lot. I think that's doable, although it doesn't look like anybody's actually doing it. But there's very little homelessness in parts of the country where housing is very, very cheap. But then you also have to solve the drug problem and the mental health problem. And the drug problem, you're probably going to have to solve by legalizing drugs in some way. And the mental health problem, you're going to have to solve by finding different ways to be able to get people into facilities where they can be helped. And how you do that, and its constitutionality, and how you do that within the scope of the rule of law. I don't know exactly, but you've got to take people who are incapable of taking care of themselves, and therefore turn to harassing other people because of their mental health problems. You've got to get them out of the streets, and you got to get them into institutions, and that's going to have to happen. And I don't see anybody proposing, those kind of solutions to the problem. Beyond that, I just don't think. I think Mamdani is basically a leftist con artist, in the sense that price controls, any kind of price controls, never work. A government-run grocery store is a joke. All you need to do is bring in Walmart and into New York City, and prices will come down. But Walmart is banned from New York City. His other proposals around more government involvement in the economy are pathetic and bad. So all of that is typical left-wing pretending to solve problems that then make it worse, making buses free, making subways free, as if money grows on trees, and then dramatically increasing taxes on the people who are actually productive in the city, who actually are creating the jobs, and actually, allowing for any kind of economy in the city, taxing them, penalizing success, penalizing production, penalizing people who actually work for a living, penalizing people who've been successful, in order to fund all this stuff for people who have not been, is again left-wing populism, but is a disaster in terms of its economics and in terms of its morality, in terms of its justice. It is unjust to tax the rich to give people, free bus rides. Now, people should pay for bus rides. It's a service. If anything, privatize the busing system, and increase competition, make it easier for Uber and Lyft, and of course bring in Waymo and bring in driverless cars. That's how you lower transportation costs in New York City, not by offering free stuff. Offering free stuff only distorts and perverts. I mean, how many times do we have to talk about the importance of pricing, the importance of the price signal, the perversion of subsidizing demand and taxing supply, so that you get less supply and more demand, which only causes prices to go up even more in one way or another. Prices can be either that the literal price goes up, or it can be that the product deteriorates in quality. For example, you make buses free, too many people start using them. And then you can't take them, you can't use them, they're unusable. So the economic distortions are massive, and every one of these programs has massive economic distortions associated with it. Anybody who studied economics knows this, and yet the populist left keeps pushing and pushing. This time it'll work. This time we've got a clever way to do it. We talked about this about rent control yesterday. It's a disaster, and again, Mamdani has not offered a serious plan to solve the real problems that New York faces, and which is not surprising because he comes from the left. And just as Trump has not offered a serious plan to lower costs in America, to lower the cost of living in America. You could have a serious plan on how to lower the cost of living in America, but it's not tariffs. It's not controls over trade. It's not more government spending. It's not growth in government. It has to do with the exact opposite process. It has to do with deregulation and freeing up and all of that. All right. I will recommend Nikos's video. You can find Nikos's video on YouTube. It's called "Forget Woke: The Left's New Formula and How to Fight It." It's quite good, and I'm sure you'll know how to find Nick Fuentes' video as well. Make Walmart pay living wage. Walmart pays a living wage. Every single one of the people working at Walmart is alive. They all make a living wage. If Walmart didn't present the best job opportunity they had, they wouldn't work there. And the fact is, Walmart wanted to open stores in New York. New Yorkers wanted jobs at Walmart because they were good jobs. The authoritarians in chief, the authoritarians in charge, prohibited Walmart from entering the city, and basically Walmart has walked away. But if you want to lower costs, and the low costs are not because they pay their employees less than other people. The low cost of Walmart have nothing to do with the cost, very little to do with the cost of labor, and everything to do with a superior supply chain management system, a understanding of getting the products that people actually want to the store when they want it, and in bulk, so that the costs are low. It's got to do with warehousing. It's got to do with supply chain. I mean, Walmart is, together with Amazon, the two best companies in the world in supply chain management. That's why they cost so low. So you want a low cost of living? It's easy. Deregulate. Allow Walmart in. Allow other big retailers in. Allow the people who actually know how to lower costs in. And the government-run grocery store is a joke, always has been a joke, always will be a joke. You can write up the best business plan in the world, but the incentives are all messed up and all screwed up, and every attempt at a government-run grocery store has failed. Why would you expect it to be different this time? Not to mention, again, the immorality of raising taxes on the productive in order to fund such a stupid scheme. All right. Here's the most depressing story you'll hear about, I don't know, this month, this year. This is about as depressing as it gets, and it's not political. It's just it's what's going on in our world. I mean, it's somewhat political because the main culprit is coming out of California, but you get a sense that this might be going on all over the country. There's just been a study coming out of the University of California, San Diego, examining the entering class, the incoming freshmen into the University of California, San Diego. It's University of California, San Diego is one of the most beautiful campuses in the country. It's a really good university. It's particularly good at certain STEM subjects, biology and biotech and things like that. And it's again, gorgeous campus. If you've never been, it's worth visiting to see how beautiful the university is. Anyway, they just published a report about kind of the math proficiency of incoming students, freshman student at UC San Diego. And let's be clear, it's not easy to get into UC San Diego. You have to have really good grades. You have to have really good grades in high school to get into UC San Diego. And yet, whereas 5 years ago, about 30 incoming freshmen, 30 at UC San Diego arrived at school without the math skills that would allow them a college education, below high school level. About 30. So UC San Diego introduced a remedial math class where those 30 students could be taught up to get them to the point where they could take, like a calculus class in college, which is kind of required, particularly even for psychology and certainly for biology at the university. Well, according to a recent report, that number today, just 5 years later, is 900 students. 900 students who've been accepted and who are freshmen at UC San Diego do not have skills high school math skills. It's actually worse than that. Most of the 900 don't actually fully meet middle school math standards. Middle school math standards. Here's an example of a problem that, what was it, a quarter of the students couldn't solve. Here's the problem. You can probably all do it in your heads, and if you can't, don't tell me because I don't want to know. 7 plus 2 equals x plus 6. What is x? 7 plus 2 equals x plus 6. What is x? Now, I hope that every one of you got the answer right. The answer is 3, obviously. But 25% of incoming freshmen at UCSD could not answer that question, got the answer wrong. I see a few of you got the answer right. Good. But, getting the answer right on this problem is, like a fourth grader should get the answer right on this. Like, certainly a middle school student should get the answer right on this. Anybody who's done just a little bit beginning algebra, I mean, it doesn't even require really algebra, but 25% got wrong. They don't even fully meet middle school math standards. They struggle with fractions. They cannot do algebra. The university is selective, so not super selective like Harvard, but they admit about 30% of undergraduate applicants. So they introduced a remedial math course that focuses on concepts in math that are taught in elementary and middle school. Elementary and middle school. You're studying in college. These kids can't think. I've been telling you this for years now. They can't think. One of the course's tutors noted that students faced more issues with, quote, logical thinking than with math facts per se. They didn't know how to begin solving a word problem. So we've got kids, large numbers of kids, who are making it into college. Making it into college. At a top university. Who don't know math. Who don't know math at a middle school level. Who can't think. For whom logic is, logic is a challenge. Now, how does this happen? Because remember, this is a selective university that it's only a third of the students get in. How is it that the third that they accept have no knowledge? Right? Now, it's happening because students are getting. Look, it's not because students are not taking advanced math classes in high school. They are. But the reality is that if they took advanced math classes in high school and got C's, D's, or F's, they couldn't get into UCSD. I mean, if you look at these students, you would expect them to have failed high school math, and yet they all have A's and B's. You'd expect them to have failed middle school math, but they all have A's and B's. I mean, here's a stunning statistic for you. Of those who demonstrated math skills not meeting middle school levels, the report found 42% of them reported completing calculus or pre-calculus in high school. So these are kids who don't know algebra, who can't do an algebraic equation, can't solve for algebra, and yet they took calculus or P-calculus in high school, and they got an A and a B in calculus, and they come to the university and they don't even know how to do algebra. It's unbelievable. I mean, I'm reading from, there's a bunch of news stories here. This is from a publication called The Argument by Kelsey Piper. And she writes, this, and it's not only that, the students were broadly receiving good grades. More than a quarter of the students needing remedial math had a 4.0 grade average in math, grade point average. The average was 3.7. In fact, the report found that on average, student grades in 2025 rose compared to those students admitted in 2020. So what's going on? What is going on? The reality is that what's going on is the teachers are passing everybody. Teachers are giving A's and B's to students no matter what their level of knowledge is. This is happening in high schools all over the country. Right? And they just pass everybody. People, parents and school administrators complain if teachers give low grades, certainly if they fail a student, and the teachers just have given up and they just give them high grades. I mean, a teacher says, I've taught AP calculus when no one can do fractions. AP calculus. She goes, so I say my exam results, when I was teaching it, were mostly one student who actually has, the prerequisite skills, gets a 5 on the AP exam. Maybe one more ekes out a 3, and everyone else gets a 1 or a 2. I wasn't allowed to grade in a way that would hold them accountable. She was asked, what would happen if you did grade based on their actual mastery of calculus? If I was failing all the kids who weren't doing on-level work, that would be almost all of them. The kids will all be trying to drop the class to preserve their GPAs, because that is the set of kids that cares about class rank. And if all the kids drop, they just won't run the class at all. So they cancel AP Cal, and then she'd be out of a job. So she's not going to fail them all. So, yeah, and kids don't know they don't know, in a sense. Teachers giving them an A from middle school on. They just get A's. And nobody tells them they don't know anything. And then they arrive in college and they don't know anything. Or they do the AP exam and they don't know anything. So this is what happened when you get grade inflation. This is what happened when you give everybody an A. Nobody knows anything. The incentive structure is completely distorted and perverted. And, in the past, in California, there was some reality check on this. Like, students had to take an SAT or an ACT test, which actually, well, I think Michael said it was a proxy for IQ, maybe it is, but it basically tests knowledge. It tests knowledge of a field. But in California, since 2020, the USIS system eliminated the requirement for SAT and ACT tests. This was against the advice of academic, people who know anything about education. So it's gone. In 2020, they did it 2020 for COVID, and then in 2021, they made it permanent. And since then, the number of students coming into at least UCSD, and I assume the entire California system, don't know math. From 32 students to 1,000. All they care about is the grade because that's what's going to determine whether they get admitted into school. There's no test of knowledge when they get admitted into school. They don't know anything. And what I found particularly scary is that comment about they can't do logic. They can't think. Yeah, not surprising. And this is not a COVID thing or a phone thing. We like to blame COVID and phones for everything. This is about bad teachers, bad administrators, and parents who don't pay attention. This is about a system that has rejected tests, even though they provide objectivity about knowledge, in favor of teachers who then are not allowed to really grade. And if they grade properly, they don't really have a job. And then it screws up students who might have deceived themselves into thinking we're going to go and get an engineering degree, but they don't have the math skills to do that. And even if they do the remedial math at the university, they're so far behind. The capacity to think has been so, hurt and harmed that very few of them ever complete an engineering degree, even once they pass the remedial college stuff. I mean, there's a building that happens and a skill that's developed that they don't have because their math in high school was, I don't know what they did in math class. They certainly weren't studying math. They certainly weren't learning math. The other thing that the article at least makes clear is these students are not lazy and these students are not dumb. To a large extent, this is not the student's fault. This is the fault of government schools. This is the fault of teacher unions and teachers. This is the fault of a system, the system of education, in this case at the state level. And I also think this is the fault of parents who are not paying enough attention to what their kids are being taught. But this is the fault of government schools, government education. That's the bottom line. That is the bottom line. And it's super depressing. Super depressing. How you get out of this, I don't know. By the way, it's also the fault of woke, right? It's the fault of woke egalitarianism. The wants to have all students should get the same grade. Nobody should fail a class. Everybody is the same. Outcomes should be the same, implemented at the schools. Woke egalitarianism, or egalitarianism more broadly, is an unbelievably destructive philosophy. And here's a great example. Everybody gets the same grade. Everybody gets A's and B's. Well, then nobody knows anything. And a very few number of students can overcome that. But most kids get destroyed by it. We need to go back to teaching, merit-based, knowledge. Grades are secondary. And universities need to start thinking about other ways to admit students other than grades. Because obviously grades don't work. The incentives are all messed up. And everybody's got a GPA of 4.0, even if they don't know anything. I mean, this isn't even, like somebody says, John Dewey, but it isn't even John Dewey's doing. This is just, it's not like they're using any of John Dewey's methodology even. This is just teachers who don't care, administrators who really don't care, and an egalitarian ideology that is just destroying education in America. Right? I mean, to the credit of the person who wrote the article, she blames the whole idea of equity. She says the aim of equity is not to brag about how many students of a target background you award an A in calculus. It's to ensure that every student actually learns. That's what equity should mean. And then she goes on, furthermore, to the parents reading this, your child's good grades may mean nothing. Parents understandably tend to assume that if their kid is getting an A grades, that means they are learning. I'm here to deliver bad news. It doesn't. It is very possible that your child, who is bringing home straight A's, is catastrophically behind in one or more subject areas. I've heard stories from parents whose kids were getting A's in language arts and could not fluently read. I've heard from parents whose kids were getting A's in math, then failed a placement test and learned that their school had simply not bothered to cover a significant portion of the curriculum. I mean, this is horrific. And this is why education needs to be privatized. Parents need to take responsibility for their kids' education. Responsibility. Government schools need to be shut down. And you just, the whole evil incentive structure of state-run schools needs to be eliminated. And it needs, the private sector is very good at getting results. So, yeah, I mean, it's unbelievably depressing. This is one university. One can only imagine that this is in a lot of different places. Oh, wow, we're going late today. All right, we are way behind on our fundraising goals. Remember, this is a show funded by support from listeners, watchers like you. And we're way behind, and, we're at the 1 hour mark almost. And we haven't reached the 1 hour goal. We're far behind the 1 hour goal. So, step up here. You guys can do stickers. You can do super chat questions. There are a variety of different ways in which you can support the show. Please consider doing so that the show can keep going, because the only way this show is possible, the only way I can devote the time necessary for the show is because of the funding you provide. So please consider that. Stickers, questions. We've got a lot of like $1, $2 questions, not even a lot of that, but we need some $20, $50, $100, $250 questions to keep us rolling here and to keep it all good. All right, David, thank you for the sticker. RDF, thank you for the sticker. Keep it incoming, guys. We're still about $135 short. So let's keep it going for the first hour goal, not even for the 3 hours we might be going, because I'm less than halfway through. Although these stories are going to be shorter, maybe. Who knows? Then we're going back to education. I'm going to flip the order here. Let's talk about jobs mismatch, because that seems more appropriate given what we just talked about. I mean, obviously, what we just talked about is one huge problem with education. But one of the other problems with education, and this relates to high schools, but it also mainly relates to colleges, is we're producing a lot. We're encouraging people, we're incentivizing people, we're subsidizing people to go to college, go to university, learn fields where they cannot find jobs in afterwards, where there's no work for them afterwards. We have diminished the value of what used to be called blue-collar work and elevated the value of, college degrees and the kind of work that produces. But the reality is we probably have today too many graduates. Now, this is not a market failure. You would usually say it's a market failure when you produce too much of a good and there's not enough demand for it. There's just not enough demand for ethnic studies graduates and gender studies graduates and Middle East studies graduates but probably even philosophy and history and so on. There's just not a lot of demand. And we get a lot of kids who come out of college and there's not a lot of jobs. And yet, there is a lot of demand for skilled labor. The CEO of Ford was giving a talk, Jim Farley, and he was basically said that Ford right now is got 5,000 openings, 5,000 job openings for mechanical jobs. Now, mechanical jobs. Now, note, these are jobs that pay $120,000 a year. So these are not low jobs. These are not Walmart jobs. These are not first job out of college jobs unless you're in STEM. $120,000. And by the way, you can become a car mechanic without taking out the kind of debt that it would require you to get a BA or a master's or a PhD in gender studies. So he says they've got they cannot find 5,000 mechanic jobs. They can't fill them that are paying $120,000 a year. He writes, he says, we have over 1 million openings in critical jobs in the country. Emergency services, trucking, factory workers, plumbers, electricians, and tradesmen. Right? He says, he's got a factory bay, with a lift and tools and no one to work in it. We do not have trade schools in this country. We don't teach people how to be mechanics. We, community colleges have become remedial high schools. Government worker training programs suck, unsurprisingly. They're not very good. And what do we subsidize? We subsidize anybody who wants to go to college with loans and grants and a million other ways, and it doesn't matter how much it's going to cost. And of course, a big part of this is that the government is willing to lend money to anybody who goes to college, no matter what their job prospects are at the end of the day. One solution to this problem is to privatize student loans. I mean, isn't the solution to almost every problem to privatize? I know it sounds that way, but it's true. It is. It's the moral solution, and it's the economically efficient solution, and it's the educationally correct solution. If you privatize student loans, and banks have to do it, or private equity does it, private equity is good, then the lender, the person who's going to lend you the money to go to university, is going to ask you, what are you going to study? How long is it going to take? How are you going to pay me back? What are your job prospects afterwards? And they're going to determine the interest rate on your loan that you get to go to college based on the risk that they're taking that you won't be able to pay it back. So my guess is that a loan to study gender studies is going to have a higher interest rate than a loan to study, computer science. Which makes complete rational sense. And this incentivizes people to go and study. It won't disincentivize the most passionate people, the most committed people. They will go. But at the margin, it disincentivizes people from going to study something that they will never get a job in. And instead, maybe, but instead motivates fewer people to go to college, more people to find jobs like these mechanics who make $120,000 a year. That's opening salary. That's just the beginning. According to this article, only 114,000 Americans in their 20s completed vocational programs during the first 10 months of last year, compared to 1.24 million who graduated from four-year colleges and 405,000 who received advanced degrees. Yet recent bachelor recipients in their 20s were 5.6 percentage points less likely to be employed than those who finished vocational programs. And you would expect that there's enough people at the margin who should and who would probably benefit in every aspect of their lives from going to vocational programs rather than going to college. But we have the incentive structure upside down. This is again my point about the fact, that markets provide healthy incentives. Markets create incentive structures that work, that get people to do things that make sense, moral and practical. And it is, every time we try to intervene, anytime we step in and distort prices, distort incentives, like by subsidizing through the government student loans, we pervert, we distort the ability of people or the incentives for people to actually pursue what is in actually their self-interest. So, bring markets to education, bring markets to student loans, bring markets to, the job market and the expectation of the job market. Markets are great at matching skill and education and getting people to the right place that best matches their skill set and abilities and interests. But yeah, exactly the opposite, right? Exactly the opposite. Now we'll see. We'll see. It might be that the people are learning. There is some move towards reducing the kind of the student loan issue and not funding unpromising graduate degrees, but it's just, the fact is that our government tries to steer everybody towards college, and that's not good for anybody. And it's disruptive and distortive. The whole student loan program is disruptive and distortive, and again, a big push. Trump is talking about doing away with the education department, but keeping all the things the education department does, just letting other people do it, other departments in the government, which is crazy. Much more important than getting rid of the education department is getting rid of student loans. Get rid of student loans. That should be what we stand for. Government gives out no student loans, just like it shouldn't subsidize business, shouldn't subsidize education. Get out of the business completely, 100%. Privatize it all. All right, now let's do Russia's war. All right, I haven't talked about the war in Ukraine in a long time. I figured we'd do a quick catch-up. This is going to be very quick. We'll have to come back to this topic another time because we're already an hour in, more than an hour in. Thank you, by the way, for picking up on the Super Chat font. We've covered the first hour, and we're now into the second hour. And the trickling in of funding for the show is increased, which is great. The reality is that the war is ongoing and there's no end in sight. While Ukraine does not seem to have the capabilities, certainly given the military support that it's received from the United States and Europe, given that support, it does not seem to have the capabilities to push the Russians out of Ukrainian territory. Russia is advancing so slowly to achieve its goals is going to take decades and going to cost them hundreds of thousands of Russian lives a year. This war is, to a large extent, a standstill. Putin is playing the long game in the sense that he thinks he can outlast Zelensky. The fact is, there's a big corruption investigation right now in Ukraine that is involving people pretty close to Zelensky, and Zelensky is becoming less and less popular in Ukraine. But the reality is that the opposition parties in Ukraine are just as adamant about this war as Zelensky is. So Putin gains something, but he doesn't gain as much as you think he does with Zelensky leaving the scene, because the opposition parties are just as adamant about fighting this war as Zelensky is. So Putin has basically, I think, come to the conclusion that ending the war is worse for him politically than keeping it going. If he ends the war, he has to explain to the Russian people what the hell is going on, why so many people died, why the economy is in such shambles, why their standard of living and quality of life has declined so much, why Russia didn't win. Because Russian people expected it to win, and to win quickly, and to win easily, as did most commentators around the world. And it didn't. It didn't win, didn't lose exactly, but it didn't win. Given its aims, you could say it lost. So, but if he continues the war, he can place the Russian economy on a war standing. He can rile up patriotic spirit. You can say, we're going to win any day now. He can lie to the Russian people repeatedly. He's not imposed a draft because he knows how unpopular that will be. But instead, he's paying people to join the military, paying them a lot of money, particularly among the poor and among the ethnic minorities, very large ethnic minorities in Russia. And the lower standard of living, the declining quality of life in Russia is explained as, well, we're at war. I mean, and this is a must war for Russia, and we're going to win. And people are just willing to go along with it, and they're certainly not willing to go and try to get rid of Putin, given how, his strong-arm tactics. So Putin is basically in this for the long run, no incentive to cut a deal. Trump would like a deal, and there's talk again about, I guess, the Trump administration trying to put together another peace effort, another peace proposal, 20 points after the Gaza model, 20-point peace deal. And they're gonna keep trying because Trump doesn't want this war. A lot of people on his right, a lot of people in the party don't like Ukraine, and they like Russia. They don't want America supporting Ukraine. But if Putin doesn't agree to a ceasefire and doesn't agree to any peace deal, Trump is kind of, I mean, it would look like he's completely capitulated to Putin if he gives up. So he has to continue supporting Ukraine. He does it indirectly through NATO and through Europe, but he still does it. Not fully, not to the point where Ukraine could actually win, but just enough to keep it going. And he dabbles and he plays and he tries his so-called peace deal. But there's not going to be a peace deal. Putin doesn't want a peace deal. And Americans are tired of this. At some point, America's going to say, well, enough, just whatever. Let's stop supporting the Ukrainians. There's already a majority in America that wants the U.S. to stop supporting Israel. At some point here, we'll have a majority of Americans who want to stop supporting Ukraine. Russia will get its way. I don't think that'll help Russia win any faster, or maybe a little bit faster. But this is a war that's going to go on for a long, 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 long time. Every time, by the way, there is a peace initiative coming out of the White House, Russia denies it. Russia denies that it's interested. Like, here's from out of a news piece. The Kremlin on Wednesday played down a report that the United States was working on a 28-point peace deal for Ukraine, and said there were no new developments to announce since an August summit between Putin and Trump. So, yeah, Russia doesn't want it, doesn't need it. It is quite happy just to grind its young people into oblivion. It's quite happy to grind its economy into oblivion and to suffer quietly. This is the fate of the Russian people. If you've read Dostoevsky or Tolstoy, the Russians are kind of okay with just suffering. Suffering is cool. Suffering is okay. And they're good at suffering, and so they're doing it. They're doing it. And this could go on for a long time because the Russians are well trained in suffering. Sad, pathetic. But, reality. All right. Quickly on redistricting. So, the Texas plan, the big thing in Texas was we're going to redistrict Texas, and that'll give the Republicans 5 new districts, and that'll help them preserve the House. And then California goes in and it also redistricts, and it gains 5, so it wipes out the Texas advantage. And now a federal court has ruled what Texas did unconstitutional on the grounds of it's discriminating based on race. And they've said they can't use the new redistricting map. They have to use the old map, which wipes out the 5 district advantage Republicans have. And yet the California one is still holding. I don't think a federal court is going to wipe that out because it went through a whole referendum with the people. So it's in front of the courts now. The Trump administration has appealed this already to the Supreme Court. So the Supreme Court is going to be in a position where they will help determine the fate of the next election. But yeah, I mean, a lower court just struck down Texas' new congressional map, and it's in front of the Supreme Court. I don't know how quickly the Supreme Court will hear it. The problem is that, right? I mean, the filing deadline for running in these districts is fast approaching. Texas candidates must declare their bids for Congress by December 8th. And yet, it's unlikely. I can't imagine how the Supreme Court is going to make a ruling on this before December 8th. The whole issue about redistricting and race and standards and all of this is something the Supreme Court is going to deal with. It wants to deal with it. It's going to come down with something. It's got the Tennessee case in front of it. But it's hard to believe all of that is going to be resolved by December 8th. So it does look like Republican incompetence is going to lead them to actually have led Democrats to increase the number of their districts without Republicans being able to match it. So we'll see. We'll see how all of this is going to play out, and whether Trump can get the Supreme Court to rule quickly. Supreme Court will rule. Will it rule in time to make a difference? And by what standard are they going to rule? And they're going to have to face up to the Civil Rights Act and a variety of different precedents that they themselves, that the Supreme Court itself has. And it's not obvious at all how the Supreme Court is going to rule on all of this. Are they going to cut back the Voting Rights Act? I mean, there's some inclination that they will, but when? How badly? So hard to tell. But again, there is a case, I think we talked about it in a previous show, from Louisiana that is looking at again redistricting on the same kind of basis. Let's see how they ultimately will. All right, a few good news. I'd like to remind you a little bit, affordability crisis, all this stuff. So just a few things. There is a great mailing, email that you can get on a regular basis from humanprogress.com. It comes once a week, I think, and it's got some really just great good news stories. So it's a great resource for good news. So I picked three. One of them you've already seen. So this one you've already seen, but I think we now have 2024 numbers. And this is the 24 numbers. It shows the middle class continues to shrink. Oh my God, continues to shrink. But it almost exclusively continues to shrink. Not almost. It exclusively continues to shrink because the number of Americans earning over $150,000 is now growing, continues to grow significantly. Now, this is all inflation adjusted. Don't worry, there's no cheating going on. But it went from 5.2% to 33.8%. That's huge. Huge. And the number of poor people, 50,000 or less, went from 38.4% to 21%. And the middle class has gone from 56 to 45, but all in a good direction. A lot of people in the middle class have become relatively rich. So again, this is to counter all the economic doomerism out there and all this affordability stuff and everything else. No, things are getting better in spite of everything. Things are slowly getting better. Well, maybe not so slowly. Look at that. Look at how many people are making a lot of money. And again, this is adjusted for inflation. It's not adjusted for home prices, but adjusted for inflation. And home prices are really a problem on the coasts. In much of the middle of America, home prices are not that big of a deal. Now, but you might say, oh, yes, of course, we know this, Yaron, but it's young people. Young people are being screwed. Gen Z is screwed. And I've showed you graphs about income and the fact that Gen Z makes more money than everybody else at the age at which they are. But you say, no, it's not about income. It's about wealth. They don't have any wealth. They don't have homes. They don't have all this stuff. Well, let's look at wealth. This is average wealth at age 34 by generation. The orange that is covered up by me, that is baby boomers. Baby boomers at the age of 34 had, on average, this is all average, a net worth of $257,000. Inflation adjusted, guys, in today's dollars. Is it today's dollars? Yeah, 2024 dollars. Last year's dollars. Gen X had at the age of 34 a net worth of $283,000. And notice a wealth. And millennials and Gen Zers, on average, have $347,000. It seems amazing. They're $100,000 richer. They're 40% richer than baby boomers. So, maybe, I don't know what else is going on here, but this looks good. And even if they have more debt, they don't have that much more debt. So stop. I mean, the doomerism, the problem with the doomerism is it plays into the hands of the populists. It makes it all the populists complaining and then solutions much more likely. And it's not because their parents have given them money. That transaction, that transfer of wealth is going to happen. We're talking about trillions of dollars, tens of trillions of dollars. No, this is because they make more money. I mean, if you look at income, Gen Zers make more money at that age than any previous generation. Indeed, each generation makes more money than the previous generation at age, let's say 25. They make more money. They do. Doesn't mean it will continue that way, but at least for now, that's the case. Now, a lot of that is because of the stock market. Stock market has done phenomenally well over the lifetime of millennials and Gen Zers, particularly millennials, maybe got into the stock market sometime around the financial crisis, and it's gone straight up since then. Not bad. The same thing with baby boomers who got into the stock market in the 70s and 80s at the bottom in the 70s and 80s. Since then, it's gone up. It's had some bumps, but generally gone up. But we live in an incredibly wealthy country, much, much better shape than our European contemporaries. And we need to stop complaining, focus on the good, and focus on making it better, much, much better. Ryan says, I like this. Ryan says, your wealth graph doesn't factor in all the existential angst and how hard life is for Gen Z. I think that's right. I mean, look, Gen Z's grown up in hard times. They lived through a Great Depression. Oh, no, wait a minute. They actually didn't. But they lived through a world war, right? A world war? No, that didn't happen to them either. They didn't even, they were drafted. They were sent overseas to fight in other wars. No, that didn't happen. No, none of that happened, it turned out. I mean, but they did. They were told that they were killing the planet through climate change. That's a lot of angst. They were told they are supporting genocide by their tax money being funneled to Israel, and therefore they're supporting genocide. That must create a lot of angst. It's not that they were told they had to go and fight for Israel. They were told that some of their money is going over there. And you know, some of them couldn't afford the latest version of the iPhone. They're still stuck with last year's iPhone, and that must be very, very hard for them. So yes, I'm sorry if some of you are Gen Zs and I'm making fun of you, but you deserve to be made fun of because you guys are the most complaining generation, the richest and most complaining generation ever. And we're going to get socialism because of you in some form or another. All right. And finally, one that doesn't affect Americans as much, but is on a global scale, is a huge piece of good news. There is a new malaria drug that in stage 3, which is the final stage of testing, has done phenomenally well. It's a new treatment that cures more than 99% of malaria cases in this stage 3 tests. The drug candidate may also be able to prevent the spread of the drug-resistant sub-Saharan malaria. It's called Ganlum, Ganlum. And it looks like the biggest innovation in malaria treatment since the introduction in 1999 of combination therapies, which were not as effective. And think about it, about 1 million people die in parts of Africa, particularly in Africa, but in other parts of the world as well, from malaria. And there's a cure. There's a simple treatment now that cures 99% of cases. So pretty cool, very effective, yeah, I mean, the science of medicine continues to advance in spite of the attempts by governments and government agencies to hamper its success. Science of medicine continues to advance. This is all good. All right, that is it. That is the news for this November 19th, Wednesday. It's Wednesday, November 19th. All right, let's see how we're doing on fundraising. All right, we're doing okay. We're like short $140 or so to get to our second hour goal. And we're definitely going to get into the second hour. I mean, we're in the second hour now. We're probably going to go into the third hour given the questions we have. We have quite a few questions, too many of them in the $2 realm and not enough in the $20 and $50 realm, but we have a few. So if you'd like to support the show, if you'd like to help make this show continue and possible and, pay for it, trade, value for value, please consider doing a sticker or a super chat. Super chat is great because you get to ask anything you want and you get to make a statement or attack me or criticize me or whatever. And I will read them all out loud as long as you put a dollar amount to it. You can also support the show on a monthly basis on patreon.com. I'm actually looking for 9 new people, has to be new. And doesn't count if you move from PayPal. So that has to be new Patreon supporters. So I'm looking for 9 new Patreon supporters. I got 2 over the last day or so. So I'm looking for 9 more who will support the Yaron Brook Show on Patreon on a monthly basis. I think the 2 that I got were both doing it at $5 a month. So I think almost all of you can afford to do $5 a month. The question is the show valuable enough for you to do $5 a month? Think of it that way. Is it? At $10 a month, you get a podcast, an audio podcast on your Apple podcast or any podcast you want with no ads. With no ads. You get a feed that has no advertising on it. So you should consider the $10. Of course, those of you who value the show even more than that and who can afford it, yeah, I mean, would love to have a few people sign up at $1,000 or at $500 or $250 a month or $100 a month. That makes a huge difference. That really puts the show on solid financial ground so that we can really plan expansion into the future. So please consider doing that. Patreon.com Just search for Yaron Brook Show. I also want to mention some of my sponsors. We have Hendershot Wealth. Hendershot Wealth, hendershotwealth.com/YBS is offering a product that can really help with limiting your capital gains tax exposure and liability. It's a product that is used by many wealthy individuals, and they make it possible for people who are still wealthy but less so to use the same product. You can find an interview about this on my YouTube channel in the playlist for sponsors. We also have you can also find out more Hendershot Wealth with 2 T's, Hendershot with 2 T's, wealth, one word, .com/YBS. We also have the Ayn Rand Institute, which is promoting its conference in Porto, Lisbon, a beautiful city, worth visiting. You can come as an adult, and you can get a discount. 26YBS10, 26YBS10 is the discount code, or you get 10% off, or you can come as a young person, anybody under 34, and apply for a scholarship. I know the number of scholarships, the number of people who are applying for scholarship has gone up quite a bit this year. We want even more, and I think the budget has gone up as well. So I think they're going to offer more scholarships this year. So apply, and let them know that you heard about it from this show, and let's get a massive conference. Let's get a humongous conference in Porto. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's again a beautiful city, and the Portuguese are incredible hosts. And it's going to be a good time. I'll be there. Nikos will be there. Onkar will be there, as will Ben and Taltzfani. So we'll all be there to talk about it. Let's see. What else did I want to cover? Yes, we have Michael Williams of Defenders of Capitalism, of Leadership Program The Rockies is a sponsor. Check them out, defendersofcapitalism.com, defendersofcapitalism.com. I am a speaker for the Defenders of Capitalism. I do a couple of lectures on capitalism for them. They are dedicated to educating people about what capitalism really means. Michael is a longtime objectivist and longtime friend. Check out his website, defendersofcapitalism.com, if you're interested at all in capitalism. Who have I missed? I missed Alex Epstein, who is, of course, the world authority on all things related to power, energy, electricity, fossil fuels. Check him out at alexepstein.substack.com, alexepstein.substack.com. All right. Let's move to your questions and see what happens. But don't forget, you can still ask while I'm answering. And you can ask about anything, whether I covered it today or not. And yeah. Michael. By the way, thank you, David, again, for another sticker. Thank you, David. Very generous. Keep the stickers coming, guys. It's an easy way to support the show. Enric, thank you. Eutychus, thank you for the gifting. Thank you for gifting some memberships. That's another way to support the show, is to gift memberships, so become a member. Lincoln, thank you. David, again, thank you. RDF, thank you. Who else do we have? David again. No. What am I doing? All right, let's go all the way up here. I think I've got everybody. All right, if I missed you, thank you anyway. Really appreciate it. All right, Michael, fascism has a whole theory of the good and why it does what it does. Trump is not that. Absolutely. He's just a guy with a club. He doesn't have any theory. He just says whatever to get what he wants today. Vance has theories. Trump does not. Yes, absolutely. Vance is a much more theocratic. Vance has a whole ideology based on post-liberal writings. Vance is committed to kind of an integralist, maybe integralist light. Maybe he's not quite willing to go all the way. Common good conservatism, common good constitutionalism. Vance is definitely the more intellectual, theoretical, committed guy. It's why I've told you for months, if not years, that he's more dangerous than Trump is. Trump is dangerous because he's a thug with a club, and he's breaking stuff, and he could break enough stuff that it's not repairable. It's not repairable. That's the danger with Trump, that he sets it up so that you can't repair it, and therefore we elect an authoritarian as the only out. And it could be in that sense a leftist authoritarian. We are going to get an authoritarian out of this, I fear. Rational IP, $50 or $60. It's actually 60 euro, so $70. Thank you, Rational IP. My doctor refuses to prescribe antibiotics due to guidelines, while my previous doctor did, and it helped. I'm obviously willing to follow medical advice, but I'm troubled by the government restrictions. What I can and can't take to help me medically. Yeah, absolutely. Again, the government shouldn't be involved. I mean, I understand that some medical authority, Doctors Federation or something, could come out and say, look, you guys are oversubscribing antibiotics, and this is making antibiotics generally less effective. Doctors should really think twice about subscribing antibiotics and only use antibiotics when they're needed, really needed. But it's not the government's job to do that. Government is not there to police our use of drugs. It is not there to optimize the use of, antibiotics or any other drug in our healthcare system. It shouldn't be involved in healthcare. There should be government separation between the government and healthcare. Government has no role in healthcare, not in food pyramids, not in subsidizing farming, and not in dictating what treatments are okay and what treatments are not. That should be between you and your doctor, and maybe many doctors. Maybe you want second, third, fourth opinions, but it should be up to you, not up to the government. Thomas, is it possible to dramatically lower housing prices by allowing huge amounts of building without wiping out millions, billions of dollars of equity that existing homeowners currently have? Well, probably not, but wiping that equity is good. I mean, the reality is that housing is not a wealth-producing asset. Housing prices should not be going up. People should stop viewing houses as investments. They should not view housing as where you stash your savings. Housing is a consumption good. And as a consumption good should, if the market was functioning properly without government intervention, housing value should go down in most places, unless there's some extraordinary demand for the particular place in which you live and supply has not matched it yet. So just like you buy a car, automobile, you don't expect the value to go up over time. You expect it to go down over time. That could be that you buy a rare model that is unique and it actually goes up in time because people really, really want this model, and there are very few of them, and demand, outstrips supply. Same thing with housing. Unless you're in a unique location, or it's a unique house, it's something extraordinary, something really, really different. The reality is that house prices should not go up, they should go down. And the fact that people have a lot of equity in those houses, tough. I mean, it might very well be that if we had laissez-faire capitalism, some stock prices would go down. Because they'd stop being cronies of the government. Some companies would go bust because they stopped getting subsidies. That's good. I mean, in a sense, by not allowing housing, we are subsidizing current existing homeowners at the expense of future homeowners, or at the expense of people who would like to own a home. Not good for anybody. And by the way, we talked about this yesterday a little bit, but the reality is that a lot of people, because of the way housing is taxed and priced, live in homes that they shouldn't live in. A lot of people stay in neighborhoods after, that have really good educational systems, but they don't, but the kids are growing up and they stay in big homes, even though they'd be happier in small homes because they don't want to sell because there's capital gains taxes. And because of the mortgage is basically subsidized and so much and prices go up all the time. So it's a great investment. So why leave? But that's all distortions. That's all perversions. Robert, props from 5 minutes with Robert and Amy Nasir. Sorry, fewer super chats lately. I'm cash shy this month. My daughter just bought her first house, and Dad helped a bit. That's nice. Still a monthly supporter. Thanks for what you do. Appreciate the support, Robert. I don't keep track of you guys, so I don't actually know when you're dipping off a little bit and when you're increasing a little bit. I appreciate everything all of you guys do at whatever level you actually do it. All right, here's one from yesterday, a leftover from yesterday that came in just after I shut down the show. And that's Lincoln saying, can't wait to visit Jerusalem and Tel Aviv in 2026 with some liberty-minded students on campus in the summer. That sounds amazing. What is the program that you're going? In what context is this? And you should definitely meet up with the objectivists in Israel when you go. Remo, thoughts on the idea of fasting improving your autophagy, something like that. Because currently I'm reading Peter Attia. Attia is anti-fasting, ultimately, is my understanding, because it reduces your, it reduces muscle. To grow muscle, you need a constant input of protein. So he has more recently turned away from fasting. I don't know. Look, I can't fast. I hate fasting. I break. I just can't do it. It's not, I'm weak when it comes to food. And I get hungry. I get brain fog when I get hungry. I can't think. People say if you last long enough, you get sharper. Never happened to me. I've never gotten sharper by not eating. Eating is essential to life. So I never fast. I eat relatively early in the evening, so I don't eat much before bed. So 3 hours before bedtime, I usually don't eat. And then, but I eat in the morning about an hour after I wake up. So I don't do 16 hours. I probably do closer to 14 hours or, 12 to 14 hours. But I don't know. You have to ask a real scientist, and I shouldn't have an opinion on that. Shouldn't be giving you advice on stuff like that. All right, let's see. Remo also says, do you have a special workout routine while traveling? No, it's basically the same workout routine. I try to extend it into travel when I can. So if I have early morning flights, I don't work out. So I usually go to the gym in my hotel. Hotels I stay at almost always have gyms, pretty nice gyms, actually nicer than what I have at home or in my building. And I work out. I do the same kind of routines I do here. I lift weights and I do the elliptical for my zone 2 and my Norwegian 4x4, my high intensity workouts. So I do a mixture of all of those when I'm traveling. But the reality is that a lot of times when I'm traveling, I'm just too tired. I need to sleep in because I'm sleep deprived because of the flights and because of the changing time zones. So I just sleep in rather than working out. That's just the reality. It's part of the price you pay for traveling, is that you just don't exercise as much. I walk more when I'm traveling, so I do more steps. I don't do a lot of steps here in Puerto Rico. I'm pretty much at home when I'm in Puerto Rico. I exercise, but I don't do a lot of just straight walking. When I travel, I walk a lot through airports, through city streets, but a lot through airports. So that compensates a little bit for the fact that I do less working out. Kim, Is there a hell? If there is a hell, John Dewey is there. I hope so. I hope so. If there's a rational hell, then he is. Who knows what hell is like? Okay, Remo wants me to pronounce Nikos' family name. I'm going to take a shot at it. But I probably didn't learn reading through phonics. I probably learned it sight C. That's why this is so hard for me. Sotirakopoulos. Sotirakopoulos. Best I can do. Sorry, Nikos. I apologize for that. And Remo, I'm not sure what you actually gained by that, but there we have it. Ryan says there's no free lunch. There isn't a free lunch. Somebody pays. Always. The money has to come from somewhere. We talked about that yesterday. That's a quote from Milton Friedman. No free lunch. Ryan. The curious task of economics is to demonstrate to men how little they really know about what they imagine they can design. Hayek. That is a really, really bad quote as compared to the Milton Friedman quote. Because, think of how much, design in what realm? But think about Apple design and Google design and plan and all of that. So you have to separate the realm of kind of the private sector and the realm of government. There's a fundamental difference between planning and designing in each one of those realms and how they work. It's not design that's a problem. Hayek has a lot of problems in the way he thinks about this. He views reason as a problem and design as a problem. We don't have enough reason and we don't have enough capacity to design. It's the same thing, but it's both wrong. It's the fact that you cannot make choices for other people, the fact that you cannot choose values for other people, you cannot decide what's good or bad for other people. It's not a question of how much you can think or how much you can know or how much you can design. Lincoln, contrary to conservative myth, New York City and San Francisco are safe places to live if you can afford to live in a decent area. Yes, actually very safe places to live, particularly in New York City. It's one of the safest places in the country. It's safer than a lot of rural areas and suburban areas. Sadly, there's a lot of mythology around these things. Robert, make no mistake, forcing every job to pay an arbitrary living wage means eliminating many entry-level jobs, eliminating opportunities. Yeah, it's a minimum wage that destroys jobs, which is what minimum wages do. All kinds of minimum wages destroy jobs. Gene, my friend was fired from teaching for refusing to pass his fourth graders. That's pathetic, sad, horrible. Eddie, do you have any thoughts on Mike Green's thesis that passive investing is distorting the market? Yeah, I think he's wrong. That is, the reality is that it is marginal investors who determine prices. Passive investors are not the marginal investor. Passive investors are just followers. You don't need a lot of marginal investors to move prices to where they need to be, to move prices to reflect the best information available. So no, I don't think it's passive investing. And indeed, passive investing is the best way to invest. For most of us, is the best way to invest money, and let the professionals, the people who know what they're doing, do the active investing and the moving of prices. You should not be in the business of moving prices because you don't know enough. So let the pros do it. So no, I don't think that's true. And I don't know that markets are that distorted. Passive investing is not what's driving up NVIDIA stock. What's driving up NVIDIA is the hoopla and all the excitement and people who think they know that NVIDIA is worth this amount and are buying. And you can see how new information, causes prices to change very quickly. That's not passive investors. That's active investors moving stock prices quickly. Lincoln, I'd love to see a breakdown of colleges by percent of degrees that are STEM and business related. There probably is such a breakdown. I wouldn't be surprised if you can find it. Ian, Yaron, you should ask the audience a question. Super chat answers only. Ooh, that's a good idea. All right. I need to have a good question. And the truth of your answer is determined by how much money you put on it. All right. Ian says, there's a huge mechanic shortage in aviation too. Huge regulation burden that makes competent people apprentices for years and makes them feel like they can never be trusted. Well, that's sad. But yeah, I'm not surprised. I mean, a lot of these blue-collar jobs that pay a lot of money, but are heavily regulated, heavily controlled, and have, you know, in the culture, a negative appreciation for them. You know, there's a lot of jobs there. And we don't train people for those jobs. We don't inspire people for those jobs. Lincoln is on a roll the last few days. He's asking a ton of super chats. Yaron, I sent a super chat at the end of last show. Can you pull that up and respond to it? I did already. The Oceanist. Hi, Yaron. I saw your Stitch and Adam appearance yesterday. I thought you did great. They both said they'd love to have you back on sometime to get more into objectivism and economic topics. That'd be great. Happy to go back on the show. I didn't get a lot of new subscribers from it. I was surprised because there were 400 people watching live and a bunch of people watching afterwards, and didn't get a lot of people subscribing to my show, which is ultimately the goal of going on other people's shows. So I was a little disappointed by that. Got a little bit of a bump in subscriptions today, not yesterday, but today. Maybe that's because delayed from the Stitch and Adams, but Adam. But, you know, we'll see. Who knows? Yeah, I enjoyed it, though, and I will definitely go back. Jennifer says, Walt Disney designed Disneyland because he thought it would be a cool place to go. Many people around him told him he was crazy. Turns out many others agreed with him, and the rest is history. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the reality is entrepreneurs design stuff all the time, including cities, including places. You know, there's a big difference between doing stuff as an entrepreneur and designing where your fundamental relationship with everybody around you is voluntary, is non-coercive, versus a government designing stuff where your fundamental relationship with everybody around you is coercive. That makes a big difference in the consequence of the design. Sandy said, "Great to meet you in Colorado." Sandy, great to meet you. I'm glad you had a chance to come to my talk. Adam, the introduction of index funds in the 70s is to personal finance what the chlorination of water was to public health. Thoughts? Yeah. Well, I assume you view chlorination as a good thing. Yeah, it's a miraculous thing. I mean, it really allowed people at a very, 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 very low cost. Index funds are very cheap cheap for the investor to participate in the stock market and to participate in the dramatic increase in stock market valuations over the last 40 years, and to participate without having to become an expert on stocks, without having to gain the knowledge, just the general knowledge that the U.S. is generally a good place to invest, a good economy, and as a consequence, things will go up because things keep getting better. And as long as that happens, indexing is fantastic. And it allows people to specialize. It allows people to do the thing they're really, really good at and let other people determine prices in the stock market. So yes, I don't know about the particular metaphor, but it's a huge benefit to humanity. Lincoln says, it's a program called Homeland that allows Jewish students to visit Israel once in the summer for free. I'm not Jewish, but I still get a reduced rate for being a student. Okay, cool. That's cool. You should definitely get together with the local objectivists there when you're there, so let me know when you're going. Lincoln continues to say, ironically, I'm a finance and law double major, yet not Jewish, which certainly puts me in the minority. That's funny. Cool. Thank you, Lincoln, for asking all those questions. Thank you to all the other super chatters. Really, 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 really appreciate it. And I will see you guys, I'm not sure when, I will try to do a show over the weekend if I have time, but right now my schedule is stacked, and I don't think I will have time. So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 4 days without a show. Monday, I'll try to do one in the evening after I'll fly home, and I'll try to do one in the evening. But the next 4 days there'll be no shows, so I'm preparing you for that withdrawal syndrome. I know many of you go through Yaron Brook show withdrawal syndrome. Hopefully there'll be no news during the next 4 days, so there'll be no big deal, no big loss. I will see you all probably Monday, maybe before, but most likely on Monday. Bye, everybody. Have a great week, and have a great rest of the week, and have a great weekend. Bye.